Hello students, I am Gaurav Kumar Jain from Jamia Hamdard University, New Delhi. Today we will study about pre-formulation part 1 under paper Product Development 1. Learning objectives of this module are: first, pre-formulation and the objectives of pre-formulation; second, importance of crystallinity and polymorphism in pre-formulation; third, importance of crystal morphology in pre-formulation; and fourth, importance of hygroscopicity in pre-formulation. Let's begin with the introduction of pre-formulation. Prior to nomination into full development, a candidate drug should undergo a phase traditionally called as pre-formulation. The word pre-formulation is composed of two words, pre and formulation, that is, the process done prior to formulation development. In simple definition, pre-formulation encompasses all studies enacted on a new drug compound to produce meaningful information for subsequent formulation of a biopharmaceutically suitable and stable drug dosage form. To appreciate the importance of pre-formulation in the overall process, we must be aware of the process of drug discovery and development. Drug molecules are rarely administered alone. They are administered as dosage form or formulations. In simple terms, the goal of drug discovery and development is divided into two phases, the first being converting ideas into candidate drugs for development, and the other being converting candidate drugs into products for registration and sale. In reality, these goals are extremely challenging and difficult to achieve because of many significant hurdles a pharmaceutical company has to overcome during the course of drug development. As an example, during research activity, it should be feasible that compound is novel and patentable. It should fulfill unmet medical needs and should be potent and selective. During safety studies, the compound should be non-toxic and should possess high margin of safety. During clinical studies, it should show efficacy and it should be tolerable. During regulatory studies, the quality of data and documentation are of prime importance. During manufacturing, the drug should be manufacturable, it should be developed into a stable drug product and can be easily scaled up. During marketing, it should meet patient needs, should be competitive and should have high return on investment. The high risk of failure in drug discovery and development throughout the pharmaceutical industry statistically shows that on average, only 1 in 5,000 to 1 in 10,000 compounds screened in research will reach the market. Of those that are nominated for development, the failure rate will vary from 1 in 5 to 1 in 10. On top of that, there is a significant commercial risk from those that are marketed. Within only 3 out of 10 are likely to achieve a fair return on investment. The products which give poor return on investment are often the result of poor candidate drug selection and or poor product development, both of which can be avoided by careful pre-formulation studies. The scope of pre-formulation studies will depend not only on the drug substance, equipment and expertise available, but also on the organizational preferences. Some companies like to conduct detailed characterization studies, whilst others prefer to do the minimum amount of work required to progress compound as quickly as possible into development. Both of these approaches have their own pros and cons. However, for the smooth progression of compounds throughout the pre-formulation phase, a close interaction between departments of pharmaceutics, medicinal chemistry, drug substance, process development and analytical chemistry is essential. Pre-formulation commences when a newly synthesized drug shows sufficient pharmacological promise in animal models to warrant evaluation in man. Pre-formulation starts with pre-nomination phase, wherein the studies must be conducted to select which compound to proceed into development. Pre-nomination studies provide a rationale for formulation development and confirms that there are no significant barriers to the compound's development. Although in vivo activity may be sufficient to determine which of the candidates has to be selected, however, other factors such as physicochemical characteristic of the compounds, ease of scale up, availability of analytical procedure and the nature of the anticipated dosage form should also be taken into consideration in the decision process. As an example, for an oral solid dosage form, ideally a water soluble, non-hygroscopic, stable and easily processed crystalline compound is preferred for development purposes. However, other formulation types will have their own specific requirements. Notably, this is a critical decision period that can profoundly affect the subsequent development of a candidate drug. A poor decision at this point could mean a substantial amount of revisionary work such as change of salt or polymorph and a possible delay to the development of the drug to the market. After nomination to full development, the increased quantity of candidate drug available will allow a more complete physicochemical characterization of the chosen compounds to be carried out with particular emphasis on the dosage form. These activities done prior to initiation of formulation development are called as pre-formulation studies, and thus pre-formulation can be simply considered as the learning phase about the molecule. So, the objectives of the pre-formulation study are: first, to establish the physicochemical parameters of a new drug entity; second, to determine its kinetic and stability; and third, to establish its compatibility with common excipients. Pre-formulation studies may have a significant impact on manufacturing, storage and performance of drug products. It not only helps to guide dosage form selection, but also provides insights into how drug products should be processed and stored to ensure quality. Ideally, a new chemical entity should possess optimal biopharmaceutical properties to become a drug molecule. Mere possession of potency and selectivity does not ensure druggability. Pharmacokinetics and material properties govern the delivery of the molecule to the site of action and thus contribute to its druggability. Fortunately, pre-formulation studies help in assessing the druggability of a molecule. A well-designed pre-formulation study is therefore necessary to fully characterize molecules during the discovery and development processes so that the new drug entities have the appropriate properties and there is an understanding of the shortcoming that must be overcome by the formulation process. Let's begin with pre-formulation studies. Pre-formulation studies can be broadly classified into: first, solid state study; second, solubility study; and third, stability study. Solid state study includes study of crystallinity and polymorphism, hygroscopicity, fundamental properties of particle like size, volume and surface area, and derived properties of particles like porosity, density, compressibility and flowability. The second study, that is solubility study, includes study of intrinsic solubility of drug, pK determination of drug, pH solubility profile of drug, partition coefficient of drug and dissolution of drug. Third, stability study includes stability at solution state, solid state stability and finally drug excipient compatibility. These are major areas of pre-formulation research which are further discussed in detail. We have to keep in mind that these topics vary in importance according to the type of formulation sought for each individual drug candidate. Let's begin with solid state characterization. Solid state characterization is one of the most important studies of the pre-formulation, as majority of drugs and excipients are available in solid form and their solid state properties directly affect both physical and chemical stabilities of the lead compound as well as processing and performance of dosage form. Solid state properties can be envisaged at three levels: molecular, particle and bulk. Molecular level properties of solid state deals with the arrangement of the individual molecules in the solid form and involves phenomena like crystallinity, polymorphism and pseudopolymorphism. Molecular properties has direct forbearance on solubility, dissolution kinetics, chemical reactivity and compaction behavior. Molecular properties can be characterized using microscopy, thermal techniques like differential scanning calorimetry, thermal gravimetry analysis, and hot stage microscopy. Spectroscope techniques like solid state NMR, FTIR, Raman, and near IR and X-ray diffraction are also used. Particle level properties deals with properties of individual particles and includes properties like crystal habit, particle size, particle shape, and surface area. They have forbearance on dissolution, flow behavior, compaction, and hygroscopicity. These properties can be characterized by equipments such as optical microscope, electron microscope, dynamic light scattering, Coulter counter, and photon correlation spectroscopy. Bulk level properties encompasses an assemble of particles and include properties like porosity, density, flow behavior, compressibility, and compaction behavior. They primarily affect processing of powders. Bulk level properties can be studied using tools for characterizing density, flow, and compaction such as pycnometers, compressibility index, and angle of repose. Let's begin with solid state studies. The first to discuss is crystallinity and polymorphism. Solids are characterized by an extended three-dimensional arrangement of atoms, ions, or molecules in which the components are generally locked into their positions. Based on the internal structure, solid can be classified as crystalline and amorphous. Crystalline solids are those in which atoms or molecules are arranged in a regular repeating three-dimensional array, whereas amorphous solids are those in which the atoms or molecules are arranged more or less randomly. Crystalline solids have well-defined edges and faces, sharp melting points, and tends to diffract X-rays. In contrast, amorphous solids have irregular or curved surfaces, melt over a wide range of temperature, and do not give well-resolved X-ray diffraction patterns. Based on the existence and arrangement, crystalline solids are further classified into polymorphs, solvates, and co-crystals. Polymorphs are crystalline materials composed of single molecules in a crystal lattice having same chemical composition but different molecular packing. Solvates are crystalline materials made of same chemical substance but with molecules of solvent regularly incorporated into a unique molecular packing. When water is the solvent, these are called as hydrates. Co-crystals are solid that are crystalline materials composed of two or more molecules in the same crystal lattice. Polymorphs. When a substance exists in more than one crystalline form, the different forms are designated as polymorphs and the phenomena as polymorphism. Polymorphs usually exist in two forms. First, enantiotropic. Enantiotropic are those where one polymorph can be reversibly changed into another by varying the temperature or pressure. Second, monotropic. These are those polymorphs where the change between the two forms is irreversible. In general, polymorphs of a given compound have different relative intermolecular and or interatomic distances and unit cells that results in different physicochemical properties including different density, melting point, hardness, crystal shape, solubility, dissolution rate, bioavailability, and compressional characteristics. And thus, the occurrence of polymorphism has important formulation, biopharmaceutical, and process implications. The concept is well demonstrated by the different crystalline forms of carbon such as diamond, graphite, and fullerenes. All these are made up of pure carbon, but their physical and chemical properties vary drastically. During pre-formulation, it is important to identify the most suitable polymorph. For example, chloramphenicol exists in form A, B, and C. Out of these, B form is more stable and most preferable. Second example is of cocoa butter, which is usually used as an oily base for suppositories. It exists in four polymorphic forms: alpha, beta prime, gamma, and beta stable. Out of these, only the beta stable form can be used as a suppository base, due to its higher melting point. Difference in density and crystal shape of polymorphic form also influences the flow properties of powders. Stable polymorph has low free energy, low aqueous solubility and high melting point. On the other hand, all other polymorphs are termed as metastable forms. They are less stable with higher aqueous solubility and lower melting point. These forms have tendency to convert to the stable form based on the suited conditions. The importance of polymorphism can be understood by the example of ritonavir. Ritonavir is an inhibitor of HIV protease used for the treatment of HIV and AIDS. Ritonavir was originally dispensed as an ordinary capsule which did not require refrigeration. This consists of crystals of what is now called as form 1. However, like many drugs, ritonavir exhibit polymorphism. On storage, a lower free energy, more stable, less soluble polymorph form 2 appeared. This more stable and less soluble crystal form comprise the oral bioavailability of the drug and cause the removal of the oral capsule formulation from the market. Thus, from the example, it is clear that pre-formulation protocol investigates and characterizes these phenomena so that the desired form can be consistently manufactured. The effect of pharmaceutical manipulations are understood, example granulation, milling and compression, and the effect of storage conditions on the dosage form can be evaluated and predicted, example crystal growth in suspensions, creams and meter dose inhalers. Polymorphism play important role in various dosage forms. It is well known that in suspension, phase transformation from unstable form to more stable polymorph can cause changes in crystal size, Ostwald ripening and caking problems. In creams, crystal growth as a result of phase transformation can cause grittiness. In suppositories, changes in polymorphic form could cause product with different and unacceptable melting characteristic. Thus, proper selection of polymorphic form is prerequisite for development of a stable and robust dosage form. Next, we discuss about solvates. Solvates are the scytometric type of adducts where the solvent molecules fill the spaces in the crystal lattice of the solid. Solvates are also called as pseudopolymorphs. Though the solvent present in the crystal lattice would likely to be removed during the manufacturing process, the use of ICH class 1 or class 2 solvents are usually avoided during production of solvates. In some cases, the presence of the solvent in the solvate is desirable. For example, trichlorofluoromethane solvate of beclomethosone dipropionate prevents crystal growth in sprays containing trichlorofluoromethane as propellant. When the incorporated solvent is water, the complex is called as hydrate, and the terms hemihydrate, monohydrate and dihydrate describe hydrate forms with molar equivalents of water corresponding to half, 1 and 2 respectively. Water is entrapped through hydrogen bonding inside the crystal and strengthen the crystal structure, thereby invariably reducing the dissolution rate. Crystalline hydrates have been classified by structural aspects into 3 classes. Class 1 includes isolated lattice sites and represents the structures with water molecules that are isolated and kept from contacting other water molecules directly in the lattice structure. Therefore, water molecules exposed to the surface of crystals may be easily lost. Cephadrin dihydrate is an example of this class of hydrate. Class 2 includes hydrates that have water molecules in channels. The water molecules in this class lie continuously next to the other water molecules, forming channels through the crystals. Ampicillin trihydrate belong to this class. Some hydrates have water molecules in 2-dimensional space and they are called as planar hydrates. Class 3 includes ion associated hydrates. Hydrates contain metal ion coordinated water and the interaction between the metal ion and water molecule is the major force in the structure of these hydrates. The metal water interaction may be quite strong relative to the other non-bonded interactions, and therefore dehydration occurs at very high temperatures. A compound not containing any water within the crystal structure is termed as anhydrous. Like polymorphs, the solvates too differ from each other in terms of physical properties. Generally, the organic solvates possess greater aqueous solubility than anhydrous form, which has greater aqueous solubility than the hydrates. This is because of thermodynamically higher energy state for organic solvates compared to anhydrous form of the drug. Further, hydrates are already in interaction with water and thus have least energy for crystal breakup for further interaction with the water. As an example, N-pentanol solvate of fludrocortisone and chloroform solvate of grisofulvin are more soluble than their anhydrous counterparts, whereas anhydrous ampicillin and theophylline possess greater solubility and higher bioavailability compared to their trihydrate and monohydrate forms respectively. Nevertheless, the pseudopolymorphs generally have low solubility and low dissolution rates compared to true polymorphs. Next we discuss is amorphous forms. Solid powders wherein no particular order of molecule is technically non-crystalline and are called amorphous form. The amorphous forms are formed by vapor condensation, supercooling of melt, precipitation from solution and milling and compaction of crystals. Examples of few drugs that are available in amorphous forms include celecoxib, amifostine, cefuroxime acetyl, cefpodoxime proxetyl and novobiocin. The amorphous form is thermodynamically the form with the highest solubility. Consequently, amorphous form will exhibit a greater solubility in a solvent than crystalline form. Solubility advantages of factors greater than 1000 have been observed between crystalline and amorphous drugs. The increased solubility of amorphous actives can lead to dramatically increased intrinsic dissolution rates when compared to crystalline forms. However, use of amorphous form in formulation are usually avoided unless the difference in solubility makes a significant impact on the bioavailability. This is because the amorphous forms have high energy and they are thermodynamically unstable. As a result, they might turn into a crystalline form, particularly in suspensions dosage forms and even in solid dosage form, wherein the atmospheric moisture might serve as the nucleation point. In addition to being a physically metastable physical form, amorphous forms are generally less stable chemically. They also tend to have very low bulk densities, making the material difficult to isolate and handle. The irregular shape of the powder of amorphous form create high surface area which attracts water molecules, making them inherently more hygroscopic. Thus, each of the form, whether crystalline or amorphous, should be carefully selected while developing a dosage form. Next, we start with crystal morphology. The external shape of crystal is termed as crystal habit. Active pharmaceutical ingredients can exist in variety of shapes, few of which are described. The first shape is acicular. Acicular crystals are needle-like, cylinder and or tapered. They are thinner than prismatic but thicker than fibrous crystals. The second type is bladed crystals. Bladed crystals are blade-like. They are cylinder and flattened. They are elongated than platy type and thinner than tabular type. The third one is equant. Equant crystals are those which have roughly equal length, width and breadth. The next type of crystal is fibrous. Fibrous crystals are extremely cylinder. They are thinner than acicular crystals. The next type is platy crystals. Platy crystals are plate-like, flattened and thin, but they are wider than bladed and thinner than tabular crystals. The next type is prismatic. Prismatic crystals are pencil-like elongated crystals but are thicker than acicular crystals. The last type explained is tabular crystals. Tabular crystals are book-like. They are thicker than platy crystals but they are not as elongated as bladed. The habit of a crystal arises due to the way in which the solutes orient themselves when growing. Therefore, the general shape of a crystal is the result of the way individual faces grow. Since solvents can preferentially adsorb to crystal faces during the growth process, crystals of a substance produced under different crystallization conditions may exhibit an entirely different physical appearance, even though they still belong to the same crystal system. Crystal morphology or habit is important since it can influence many properties of the compounds. For example, powder flow properties, compaction and stability have all been found to be dependent on crystal morphology. As an example, it has been shown that tall butamide form D, which is plate-like crystal, cause powder bridging in the hopper and capping problem when tableted. Form A of this drug, on the other hand, was tableted without problems. In another example, investigation shows that needle-shaped powder has the worst compression properties, showing greater capping and lamination than the plate or cube-shaped crystals. Compounds with different crystal habits can also exhibit differences in dissolution rate. If a compound exhibits a particular morphology that may cause formulation problems, it may be worthwhile investigating ways in which to change the habit via crystallization from different solvents. Additionally, the effect of impurities on the crystal habit should not be overlooked, as these can act as crystal poisons or promote growth in particular crystallographic directions. The last topic to cover under this is analytical techniques. Now we discuss the analytical techniques used for determination of crystallinity, polymorphism and crystal habit. The first technique is microscopy. All substances that are transparent when examined under a microscope that has cross-polarizing filters are either isotropic or anisotropic. Amorphous substances are isotropic materials which have single refractive index. With cross-polarizing filters, these isotropic substances do not transmit light and they appear black. Materials with more than one refractive index are anisotropic and appears bright against the black polarized background. Anisotropic substances are either uniaxial having two refractive indexes or biaxial having three refractive indices. Most drugs are biaxial, corresponding to either an orthorhombic, monoclinic or triclinic crystal systems. Crystal morphological differences between polymorphic forms are often sufficiently distinct that the microscope can be used routinely to describe polymorphic crystal habits. The next technique, which is widely used to study crystals and polymorphic form, is hot stage microscopy. The polarizing microscope fitted with the hot stage is a useful instrument for investigating polymorphism, melting points, transition temperatures and rate of transition at controlled heating rates. Hot stage microscopy is a fusion technique where sample can be heated at different rates in the sample chamber and the atmosphere can be controlled. Sample chamber also allow the light from the microscope to pass through the sample. Direct observations by hot stage microscopy can reveal subtle changes not readily detected by other instrument techniques. The next technique are thermal analysis, including differential scanning calorimetry and differential thermal analysis. These technique measures the heat loss or gain resulting from physical or chemical changes within a sample as a function of temperature. Examples of endothermic processes are fusion, boiling, sublimation, vaporization, desolvation, solid-solid transitions and chemical degradation. Crystallization are usually exothermic processes. Quantitative measurements of these processes have many applications in pre-formulation studies, including purity, polymorphism, solvation, degradation and excipient compatibility. The another technique which is widely used is X-ray diffraction studies. This is an important technique for establishing the batch-to-batch reproducibility of a crystalline form. Random orientation of a crystal lattice in a powder sample causes the X-rays to scatter in a reproducible manner of peak intensities at distinct angles relative to the incident beam. Each diffraction pattern is characteristic of a specific crystalline lattice for a given compound. An amorphous form does not produce such pattern. Mixtures of different crystalline forms can be analyzed using normalized intensities at specific angles which are unique for each crystalline form. Other methods such as infrared spectroscopy, proton magnetic resonance, nuclear magnetic resonance and scanning electron microscopy have additional applications for studying polymorphism and solvation. Next study which play important role in preformulation is hygroscopicity. Many compounds and salts are sensitive to the presence of moisture or water vapor. When compounds interact with moisture, they retain the water by either bulk or surface adsorption, capillary condensation, chemical reaction and in extreme cases a solution. Adsorption and equilibrium moisture content can depend upon the atmospheric humidity, temperature, surface area exposure and the mechanism for moisture uptake. Deliquescent materials adsorb sufficient water to dissolve completely as is observed with sodium chloride on a humid day. Moisture is an important factor that can affect the stability of candidate drugs and their formulations. Sorption of water molecules onto a candidate drug or excipient can often induce hydrolysis. In this situation, by sorbing on the drug excipient mixture, the water molecule may ionize either one of them or both of them and induce a reaction. For example, primary amine drugs when mixed with lactose were apparently stable even when stored at 90 degrees Celsius for 12 weeks. However, in the presence of moisture, extensive degradation by way of well-known Maillard reaction took place. Other properties such as crystal structure, powder flow, compaction, lubricity, dissolution rate and polymer film permeability may also be affected by moisture absorption. Other properties such as crystal structure, powder flow, compaction, lubricity, dissolution rate and polymer film permeability may also be affected by moisture adsorption. The influence that moisture has on stability depends on how strongly it is bound. That is, it depends on whether the moisture is in free or bound state. Generally, degradation arises as a function of free water which may be due to its ability to change the pH of the surfaces of the candidate drugs and excipients. On the other hand, bound water is not available if it is a crystal hydrate or hydrogen bonded or sorbed or trapped in the amorphous structure. According to European Pharmacopoeia Technical Guide, the degree of hygroscopicity is divided into 4 classes based on a static method after storage at 25 degrees Celsius for 24 hours at 80% relative humidity. A material is said to be slightly hygroscopic if increase in mass is between 0.2% to 2%. A material is said to be hygroscopic if increase in mass is from 2% to 15%. A material is said to be very hygroscopic if increase in mass is equal to or greater than 15%, and a material is said to be deliquescent if it sufficiently absorbs water to form a liquid. If a compound is very hygroscopic, it would normally be rejected. However, the decision to proceed with a compound that takes up less water should be taken on case-by-case basis. For example, although a compound may take up 5% moisture, it may not be accompanied by any serious effect, that is, it may remain stable and free-flowing despite a high level of surface moisture. Moreover, there may be phase change to a hydrate which may be beneficial in some circumstances. The hygroscopicity is tested by placing the sample of bulk drug in open containers in range of controlled relative humidity environments prepared with saturated aqueous salt solutions as mentioned in the table. Saturated solution of silica gel is used to maintain 0% relative humidity. Saturated solution of potassium acetate makes 20% relative humidity. Saturated solution of calcium chloride makes 32% relative humidity. Sodium bromide makes 58% relative humidity. Saturated solution of potassium bromide makes 84% relative humidity. Saturated solution of dipotassium hydrogen phosphate makes 92% relative humidity, and use of water make 100% relative humidity. All these calculations are done at 25 degrees Celsius. At predetermined time point, moisture level were determined either by suitable analytical method such as gravimetry, TGA, Karl-Fischer titration or gas chromatography, or by determining percentage weight gain. The selection depends upon the desired precision and the amount of moisture adsorbed onto the drug sample. We come on to the conclusion of this module. In conclusion, pre-formulation is the important step in drug development and it acts as bridge between drug discovery and product development. Solid state properties such as crystallinity, crystal habit and hygroscopicity are very important material property that affect solubility, stability, processability and performance of the product. As a rule of thumb, drug product is developed using most stable form to avoid possibility of phase transformation of metastable form to stable form during shelf life of the product. Proper selection and assessment of the solid state property also provides a unique opportunity for patent life extension.